Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, get to have a pretty fun podcast today because we just get to talk about what's working. Kraken are, starting off the season, 5 straight games with a point to kick off the season. It's their best start ever. I mean, the team is rolling right now. We just get to talk about all the fun reasons why.
This is 2 weeks in a row, Dylan. I'm not used to this. I don't know. It's a little scary.
It's about scary.
It's fun
because it's Halloween season, RJ.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna have fun with it. It's great, but
Yeah.
I'm still. It just feels so odd.
It is definitely different. Then, of course, we also get to talk about Berkly Catton, who's going to be making his NHL debut tonight as well. So lots of fun stuff to talk about on the pod here. Boy, so different than like just a month and a half ago when we're coming out of August and there's just nothing happening. Now, not only is stuff happening, but it's all good stuff. We get to talk about it. So looking forward to today's podcast. But as always, going to start off by thanking our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendor. And, RJ, hockey tends to mirror life, I would say. I think everybody could agree with that. And by that, I mean injuries happen. And if you find yourself injured, like many members of the Kraken currently are, and we're going to get to that in just a moment, due to an accident, workplace injury, something like that, Rico is there for you. You can call on Rico.
Yeah, he is the man to call. And oh boy, the Kraken have struggled with some injuries recently. I mean, sometimes it's not even stuff you can control a whole lot of. I mean, I think of Ryan Lindgren, the puck just ramping up the stick. He's not even in front of the shot. He's not lying down to block it. Yeah, the puck will find him. And, sometimes, especially when you're out on the road, as weather's getting worse, it'll find you, unfortunately. And so when that happens, Rico is the guy to call. He will take care, deal with the insurance companies while you're healing up, so that you can get back to your life as soon as possible. Like Ryan Lindgren is actually not even going to miss a game.
It's Ryan Lindgren. The lineup will find him, and then when he's in there, the puck will find him. That's just how it works with Ryan Lindgren. But yes, with Rico, while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. It does bring up an interesting thing though, RJ, just because it's like workplace injuries with like hockey players. What year do you think like NHL player contracts had whatever waiver that says if you are injured playing a game in the National Hockey League, you cannot sue the National Hockey League as like a workplace injury? Because it's like that there's a clause now in contracts that must state that. I wonder at what point in time that became a thing, because it didn't start off that way in like 1897.
No, it's certainly after that. I don't know.
It's a good question.
I really don't know. I'm sure that became just next week standard in the US at some point for anything. But yeah, certainly after the 1800s, it was kind of the Wild West back then.
Yeah, sort of literally. At least out here on the West Coast. Yeah. I'll have to look that up for next week. Before we get going and we get to the Kraken injuries here, though, RJ, we've got to talk to everybody about our Patreon schedule, because for the second week in a row, we have to talk about upcoming live game commentary.
That's right. So there has been a Patreon schedule change, because live game commentary was originally scheduled for the 16th in that game against the Ottawa Senators. But thanks to those pesky Seattle Mariners, I know everybody's upset about what the Mariners are doing right now. Nobody in Seattle likes it. But because of them, we had to reschedule to avoid a conflict with the ALCS. And, I'm glad we did. Yep. I'm very glad we did. And so the new game is October 23rd, and that's a 5 p.m. start. It's a game against the Winnipeg Jets. And Dylan, you told me, I didn't check the schedule myself, but you told me that would not conflict with any World Series games. I guess they put the schedule out ahead of time.
Yes, that is what I was told. I can do it right now. Didn't know I needed to have it up.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Game 1 would be Friday, October 24th.
Okay, potentially perfect. Don't want to, jinx anything, but I will say as we close this out, Go Mariners in the game 7
Yes.
tonight. We'll definitely have that on a second screen in addition to the Kraken game.
I was gonna say it's definitely one of those. Like I was gonna ask you with some of these Mariners games, especially like tonight, Game 7. Which one's getting like the main screen, and then which one's getting which one's getting the TV, which one's getting relegated to the laptop?
I think the Kraken game might be getting relegated to the laptop. Also, I mean, for Seattle sports fans, you also have the Seahawks on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess there is also the Seahawks game.
Look, no shade to the Kraken here, but this might be the least paid attention to, cared about Kraken game all season. Just because, I mean, look,
Way to go,
playoffs
Berkly.
yeah, I know. Well, hey, look, takes all the pressure off Berkly Catton.
Yes,
if he
it
has a
does.
rough NHL debut, nobody will have watched it aside from us and the hardcore Kraken fans. But other than that, all the eyes are gonna. I bet even the hardcore Kraken fans, you'll have the eyes on the Kraken game,
Yeah.
but you're gonna be watching the baseball game too, and that's fine.
I was gonna say, everybody, let us know what your plan is for this week and how you're gonna deal with that, because it's gonna be fun later tonight for sure. Lots of Seattle sports stuff going on, and yes, it would not surprise me if at the end of the year, when the Kraken Hockey Network looks back at their year, if tonight ended up being one of their lowest viewed games, just because I mean, game 7, World Series berth on the line. I understand.
And you know what? To anyone at the Kraken Hockey Network, don't take that one personally.
I don't
You know
I
what?
don't think they will at all. I think they will very
Yeah.
much understand as well.
Real quick, Dylan, though, how'd you
Yeah.
like the Kraken wearing the Mariners jerseys as they arrived to their game in
I thought
Toronto
that
the other night?
so I obviously love it. I love it when the different sports teams around a town support each other, especially when something big is going on, something, potentially historic, all of that kind of stuff. Um, it is funny though, because like, yeah, they're in Toronto. You have the most Canadians of any NHL roster is the Seattle Kraken. So they got the most Canadian boys, and they have so many GTA guys that grew up Blue Jays fans, and I'm sure had to have some conflicting feelings about wearing the Mariners jersey. So I would love to know internally, to have been a fly on the wall of like who had the biggest issue putting the jersey on, because there must have been somebody that probably did.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there has to be some players there. But you know what? Took
They
one
did
for
it.
the team
They
there.
did
They
it.
were they were
Yep.
all on board. I mean, including, and look, he didn't have to do this. Vince Dunn, another
Yeah.
GTA guy, wore the jersey even after the game for his
Mhm.
post-game media. And so I put the picture of that up there on Instagram, and that did numbers, got like 500,000 views on it.
Yeah.
Really resonated with people that even this, Toronto area guy, who I'm sure, I think he's definitely worn Jay's stuff before.
Yes.
But repping the Mariners, and
Yep.
good for him.
It is. It is. It's good stuff. All right, so let's get to talking about the Kraken here. That is the point of the podcast. And we're going to start off with the injuries. Before we get to all the good stuff, all the good stuff is coming. We're going to get the rough news out of the way first. Let's start off talking about the injuries, RJ, because unfortunately this week the Kraken have picked up a couple.
Yeah, they have. And we started with Ryan Lindgren and the Rico thing. Turns out he's probably not going to miss a game, so we won't really
Yeah.
talk more about it, but playing through it. He's a warrior. We know that. But some injuries that players are not going to be able to play through. And it starts with Freddie Gaudreau, injured. I think it was the Ottawa game, a couple
Mhm.
games back. He was checked, landed awkwardly into the boards. It looked pretty bad at the start. And so turns out he is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury, according to the team. So it was as bad as it looked. He'll be on IR for a little while. So the Kraken kind of needing someone else in that 4C spot. They called up John Hayden to fill that spot. So hopefully Freddie Gaudreau is back on the earlier end of that timeline. Then not an injury, but Brandon Montour. Also, he is away from the team for personal reasons to tend to a family matter. Sounds like he's not back with the team quite yet. So it looks like he'll miss at least 2 games. So hopefully everything is okay there with the Montour family. You never want to, see something like that.
Mhm.
But I not to say it's bad. We don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
hopefully everything's all right. And then the final injury here is one that broke this morning, and that's to Jared McCann. He is day to day with a lower body injury. He's not going to play tonight, which is a shame because he was having such a hot start to the season. It felt like he was finally healthy. He played through an injury all of last season, and then had one in training camp as well. So, we'll see how long he's out with that one. Hard to tell, but he's certainly going to miss tonight. But Jared McCann missing tonight does provide an opportunity for Berkly Catton to get in the lineup. And so with the bad, there's some good that we get to enjoy here as Berkly Catton is set to make his NHL debut. Lane Lambert confirmed that this morning, and it looks like he's going to be, at least to start, playing on that first line with Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle. So, Dylan, I'm a little surprised to
Well, I was
see
going to say,
this.
before we get to the Berkly Catton stuff, because
Yeah.
there is some stuff to
Okay.
finish up on the injury front.
Okay.
Just with like McCann and what that could potentially be around, and then
Yeah.
also, you know, roster wise, like it is great that they had Berkly Catton. He's been a healthy scratch, and
That's
they can
true.
fill him in. But now that roster is extremely thin. And if there were to be any more injuries, something's going to have to change there. So just with the Jared McCann thing, you know, he had the injury during training camp, all that stuff. We're unsure if this is related to that. We don't know. One interesting tidbit is that the Kraken had just put out a feature article on their website about Jared McCann and injuries and all the stuff that he dealt with, including like bone spurs that he had removed over the offseason, all of that kind of stuff. And the moment the McCann injury news broke, that article disappeared off the website. So again, I don't know that that means that there's any sort of link between what injury he's dealing with now and the injuries that were discussed in that article that he kind of had to deal with last season and over the offseason. But that did happen. So, you know,
And the
it's
timing of that article might suggest that it's not something that's been like lingering. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
If he was in danger of missing the next game with an injury
Don't
and it
put
was
that
related
out.
to that, I feel like the team wouldn't have put that out there.
I agree. So it's probably something new there. But then on the roster front, RJ, because you know, again, Berkly Catton was your reserve player, basically, certainly for the forward group. You're already using both, you know, defensemen. They bring up Ottavainen yesterday or the day before. He's coming in and slotting into the lineup now. You already have, you know, Fleury in there, or at least Ottavainen's coming in to be like a seventh defenseman. You already had Fleury in the lineup because of Montour's absence. So you're already having to call up guys from CV to help out on the back end. You now have no forward in reserve unless McCann is like, you know, could technically play, but they just don't, you know, they're letting him rest maybe. But the point of this is, RJ, at some point would be nice to not have three goalies on the roster probably when it comes to injuries starting to pile up. And you know, we've talked about especially you in the past, right? Last season Kraken were actually one of the teams that benefited the most from injury luck. Seems like they're regressing to mean a little bit this year already with all the injuries. At some point they're probably going to need that roster spot. Do you think that we see one of the goalies sent down sometime soon just so that they can bring up another body and have somebody in case something happens, particularly while they're still on the road for most of this week?
Yeah, the road trip does make it difficult because you need those reserve players, and it's not quite as easy to just call them up or have people kind of around the org and in your building. So you want an extra just at every position if you can, or forward and defense. And so I think they're going to try and avoid it if they can, sending a goalie down, just because I think that's something they feel like they're committed to, is having the three goalies up. But they might not have much of a choice if the injuries keep piling up. And I do want to say to everybody, this is closer to normal as far as the injuries. I did even got a text from a friend say, you know, who in the Kraken org unlocked an ancient curse because these injuries are crazy. And this really isn't ancient curse type of injuries. This is just more what a normal team goes through. The Kraken were unusually healthy over the last couple of years, and this is the sort of thing that you can really come to expect. It's on a little bit of the worst side of things, but still, it happens. So I think you don't need the, like, because look, you can send down Ottavainen right now if Lindgren's okay.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility. I don't think it's essential that you send down a goalie right away. And I guess you don't want to call it lucky, but from a roster perspective and just having enough guys, I guess it's lucky that the injuries they've had have been on the longer term side where you can place the player on injured reserve and that frees up a
Mhm.
roster spot. For example, with Freddie Gaudreau, they placed him on IR. That frees up a whole roster spot, so you don't have to worry about it. But if Jared McCann is, you know, maybe day to day and you plan on him coming back in less than a week, then you can't put him on IR. You don't want to put him on IR, and you might need a spot. So I think I'd still be surprised to see a goalie go down soon. But man, if they need a spot, I think we talked about it on our little post game debrief the other day. Philip Grubauer would be the easy one to send down because you know he's not going to get claimed on waivers. It just frees up a spot nice and easy for you. And you know, Matt Murray can be your backup, and he's probably a better option anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. So I just wanted to bring it up because I know that's something that's very much being discussed right now is the fact that all these injuries are piling up and Kraken have the three goalies there, and I just thought it would be worth mentioning before we totally move on.
Oh,
But
real
now,
quick, one
yeah,
thing, just sorry, one more thing for the rules, just so everybody knows, because this is something
yeah,
that I wasn't like 100% solid on. Um, Brandon Montour, because he's like taking kind of a personal leave of absence for the team for family reasons, he does not count toward the roster, so
roster,
he
yeah.
does not count as a roster spot there. And I know that's something I wasn't 100% sure of. So especially for newer fans, but even if you've been following the game for a while, might not know the rule on that one.
Mhm.
And so if a player has to take a leave of absence for a family matter, they do not count toward the roster.
Yeah, no, good to get that out there. Okay, Berkly Catton. We're there. We can talk about it now for sure. Um, I guess the to get the one boring aspect of this out of the way for everybody, what this does to the potential conditioning stint that feels like has been the plan for Berkly Catton, as far as sending him down to CV, letting him play there for about 5 games, stay down there for like 2 weeks, in order to be eligible for that conditioning stint. Correct me if I'm wrong here, RJ. Player needs to be a healthy scratch for 5 games in a row. Berkly Catton had just reached that mark with that Toronto game, but now that he's coming into the lineup, that timer is going to be reset for him. So we'll see how many games Berkly Catton gets here. If it's just tonight, if it's going to be the back-to-backs tonight and tomorrow night, if it's going to be the rest of this road trip, and he'll play against Winnipeg. We'll see how long Berkly Catton's up, but whenever he then leaves the lineup, whenever Jared McCann's back and ready and Berkly Catton leaves the lineup, that timer will start again and he'll have to be a healthy scratch for 5 games in a row before then they can send him down to CV. So we'll see when that timer starts again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct about that 5 games. At least I believe you are. I think you are, because it's actually not spelled out anywhere in the CBA or any of the memorandums of union.
Yeah.
I looked at all of
Why
those
why
documents.
why why do that?
Yeah. Oh, so it's not anything public that's out there. We only know this because of just reporting of people who talk to James and the fact that the Kraken were able to do it with Shane Wright a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, but it's actually not written down anywhere the public can access, which is a little frustrating. So as far as I know, that's what it is. And it's 5 games, but yeah, that timer resets. And so it really does affect, I don't know what I thought the plan was with Berkly Catton because he was scratched those first 5 games. I thought, okay, maybe they're just going to do the AHL conditioning stint right away, but apparently not.
Yeah. All right. So he's coming in to the lineup, replacing Jared McCann's spot in the lineup, or at least the 5-on-5 line's going to be playing on the left side of Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle. What do you think of that spot for Berkly Catton, RJ? And do we think he'll stay there all game?
I like that spot for him. And I know you were saying maybe there's some other better spots for him. I'll let you talk about that. But look, he's in what should be the top 6, at least to start.
Mhm.
I'm not complaining. Like what I was worried about was just him being, fourth line or bottom 6 type of role. I didn't want that. And so one of the things we talked about with Berkly Catton, right, is when the time came for him to actually play NHL games, he needed to get real minutes and get real opportunity to kind of get into a groove and everything. And the thing you can't do is like with Shane Wright a couple of years ago, where it's 6 minutes, 6 minutes.
Mhm.
I don't think he's going to be playing 6 minutes tonight. Certainly not starting with Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle. Also, I really love the chemistry between Matty Beniers and Berkly Catton that we saw in the
Mhm.
preseason. So let that ride. You don't have to mess with any of the other lines too. It's just nice and simple with McCann being out. It works well for me, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for him to start the game, and then you can just kind of go from there. And that's really what Lane Lambert's done so far this season. I mean, we've seen a lot of line shuffling, not so much for that Matty Beniers line, because him with Jordan Eberle and Jared McCann, they've just been the Kraken's best line. And so Lane Lambert has not wanted to fix that. But certainly with the other lines, we've seen lots of shuffling during games of line mates, as particularly wingers going up and down and kind of moving around. And it would not surprise me if we saw that with Berkly Catton tonight, if he does not stay the entire evening on Matty Beniers' side, or if he does stay on that side, if there are some shifts where he maybe doesn't hop over the boards and like a Jaden Schwartz comes up and plays with that line for a shift. Because I could very easily see RJ, that line getting 18 minutes at 5-on-5, maybe, or, somewhere in the 18-minute mark. And then Berkly Catton ending up with like 13 minutes, right? 13:30 or something like that as he makes his debut. Just because, based on how Lane Lambert has handled the other young guys, if Berkly doesn't like kind of produce early on in a game, he's gonna favor a veteran over him as the game gets going, particularly if the game is close going into the later parts of the second period and certainly the third period.
Yeah, if the Kraken are holding a lead in the third period, they're holding a 1 or 2 goal lead, expect to see a lot less of Berkly Catton. That's how he's handled it with, say, Yanni Newman early on in the season. That's just what it's going to be under Lane Lambert. So we'll see, what kind of runway they have. I mean, ideally, you'd like to just have the Kraken maybe have a big lead, and then you can really play him a lot, put him in situations, run him out there. But we'll see, I think, game script, how it goes. I mean, what are you looking for tonight? Like, because I know you're going to be focused on Berkly Catton. You're going to be, having that laser eye on him. Like, what do you want to see? And like, what questions do you have like that he could answer about whether he's kind of ready or not, or what do you want to see?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is just going to be how well does he fit into the system? Because as we're going to talk about, so much of what is working right now for the Kraken is Lane Lambert's system, which is simple, but it's being executed very well. So how well can he execute on that simple system, and how much effort is he putting out there? Because right now Lane Lambert is directly rewarding effort, and right now the team's effort is directly rewarding all of us fans with wins. So I think that a lot of it's going to come down to, it's not going to come down to, oh, does he look fast enough? Oh, is his defense there? Oh, is his whatever? It's literally just going to come down to how much effort does he have on these shifts, and is he in the right spot at the right time? Because I think that right now for this Kraken team under head coach Lane Lambert, that's what gets you ice time, and in larger sense, that's what's getting them results. So it's going to be really interesting to see as he slots in on that kind of, top six role. Does he have that? Can he match that intensity that Matty Beniers has been playing with to start this season? Can he match the intensity that Jordan Eberle has had on the forecheck, especially now that he's on the wing? Forecheck is really going to be a big part of what he needs to go out there and do. Can he match that against a team that also wants to try to win with effort under head coach Rick Tocchet with the Flyers? So that's, I think, what I'm going to be looking for, more so than like, is the game too fast for him? Is he fast enough to play at the NHL level? Is his vision translating? I think really what we want to see and what we want to be looking for in this game is just, is he executing the things he needs to execute? And is he matching the intensity of the rest of the team? Because that will tell us maybe how much he's going to play tonight, and maybe when we next see him in the lineup once the rest of the team gets healthy.
Yeah, as much as I tend to look at, because I'll be interested to see how he handles the speed and how he looks against other NHLers in a situation that counts. Like, that's the first thing that I would think to look at, even though you kind of de-emphasize that a little bit. But man, you're right. Like,
normally it is.
Normally it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but what's going to earn him that next opportunity or not? You're right. Is how much he fits in this system or not. And a lot of that's going to be his defensive play. That's something that he said that Lambert really emphasized over the training camp, and that he was really trying to get up to that speed of making sure he was in the right places defensively and managing the puck and all things like that. The areas of his game that it's not what makes him special as a player, but it's what's going to give him the opportunity or not. We see that with Ryan Winterton. Like, he's consistently got good opportunities on this team so far through 5 games. He's playing a lot. It's because he's solid defensively. It's not because of his offensive production. And so, we'll see what Berkly Catton can do there. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And because it's against Philadelphia too. Like, this is not an overly skilled team.
Right.
I think we could see like flashes of skill where he looks better than a player, and we can see that, but I know that's not what Lane Lambert's going to be looking for. So I acknowledge you're right, but I'm still going to be paying attention to kind of how he deals with the speed of everything.
I mean, again, if you're a fan, enjoy it, right? Like, enjoy watching Berkly Catton. When the puck is going to be on his stick, he is going to be electric. He's going to make plays, or at least attempt to make plays that nobody else on this team is going to try to make. That is exciting because they're going to be fun, high-level offensive ideas. That is something that we just haven't really had as people who watch the Kraken a lot. So I'm not trying to downplay like what should be happening tonight or whatever. Or, oh, he just needs to go out there and act like some grinding forechecker or whatever. It's just that I think if you want to see Berkly Catton in the lineup and getting the most opportunities, this is realistically what Lane Lambert's going to be looking for. And so therefore I'm very curious to see if Berkly Catton goes out there and does it. And with him being on the wing, I think that it's going to give him in some ways more opportunities and in some ways less opportunities. Like, I think in this system, and we're going to break down the systems more next week, by the way, which we'll kind of get to a little bit, but we'll break down the Lane Lambert systems that he's running more next week when we have time to work up like, graphics and stuff that we can add to the video version of the pod. Um, with him being on the winger, defensive zone, not too much responsibility that he needs to take on. Like a lot of the conversations through training camp with him on defense was back earlier on when he was still playing center for those preseason games. And so much defensive emphasis is placed on the centers in what the Kraken are doing right now that was a huge leap forward for him coming from the WHL. Being a winger, he needs to focus more on breakouts and especially then on the forecheck, because right now so much of the forecheck and the pressure that the Kraken are building and then trying to sustain in the offensive zone and what's working for them is all being driven by their wingers. And so I think the number one thing that he's going to have to focus on tonight is, yes, his play away from the puck, but it's not necessarily defense. It's going to be forechecking and his ability to win puck battles there, to be tenacious there, to have that effort level there, to be able to go to the net front when he needs to and try to become traffic there. But I think that those are the things that like a Ryan Winterton is doing, that defense maybe through the neutral zone more so than in the defensive zone. Those are the things that like Ryan Winterton, Mason Marchman, Ellie Tolvanen are doing right now. And those are the things that Lane Lambert wants his wingers doing. So we'll kind of see in those areas away from the puck, I think is going to make the biggest difference for Berkly Catton.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, as far as where he's put in the lineup, I know you said that you would have liked to see maybe Schwartz up in that spot with Maddie and Eberly, and then Berkly Catton with Shane, right? I mean, what were you kind of thinking there as far as the fit and why you'd want to see that? Or if it does get shuffled a little bit, because we know that's a possibility. Like if we end up seeing that tonight, like what are you looking for there?
Yeah, there's a little bit of it that is just I think that you want to keep the momentum going as a team. And I think that Jaden Schwartz in that kind of top spot and the chemistry he has with Maddie and his ability to kind of go net front in the ways that Jared McCann has been going net front would just make him more of a seamless fit. Like Berkly Catton wants to be more of a perimeter player.
For sure.
Jared McCann and the scoring opportunities that line is generating are not really perimeter chances. So I don't know that he like is as much of a fit with how that line has been playing. So that was kind of my thought process there. I've always talked about him being paired with Shane Wright just because Shane Wright's a right-handed centerman. Berkly Catton can, kind of feed his forehand a little bit. And I think that would be something that could be useful for them. And then I just thought that having those two guys with Ellie Tolvanen can really take over that net front role and presence that Berkly is probably not ready for, given his size and inexperience and youth. So I just thought like having somebody like Ellie Tolvanen out there with those two guys, Shane Wright can carry and handle things in the slot, and then Berkly could really be the perimeter focused guy, almost playing like the center in the offensive zone with how most of these lines have been playing. It just feels like a better fit than with Maddie, where Maddie's going to also want to be on the perimeter. And so I'm worried about that line not getting enough stuff where you have slot opportunities and net front presence.
Think of all the passes around the perimeter from Maddie to Catton, just perfect tape to tape passes.
And nobody taking the shot. I can't wait.
Yeah, there's not really a shoot first type of player on that line, so we'll see how it does.
I was gonna say, like, normally you would think that Eberly would be that guy, but like Eberly has done such a good job forechecking and clearing out space for Jared McCann to work in down low, and then for Maddie to get Jared McCann the puck. Like that's what that line has been working so well with. We talked about this last week. I don't remember if it was post game or last week's deep dive, but that's really how that line has been so productive is Jordan Eberle doing all the tough jobs and then opening up those prime scoring areas for Jared McCann. I don't know, who's going to kind of take over going to that prime scoring area, if it'll be Berkly Catton or if it'll be Maddie Beniers.
Right. Or tell Ebbs to shoot, like kind of get in different positions, shoot the puck a little bit more. There's that option.
But then you need somebody to be net front. And Maddie's not really that guy, and I don't think Berkly can be. So that's my only thing. Like again, I'm not trying to like temper expectations too much or dampen excitement or anything like that. It was just I do think it's a little curious, and this is why I don't think we're gonna see it like long term throughout even tonight's game. Him on that line, I just think that it might not work play style wise as well. Just him being plug and play replacement for Jared McCann.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if you're right on the plan for him tonight if they switch things around a little bit. But zooming back out just on the plan for him going forward? Because I think we should just speculate about this a little bit,
Yeah.
because I still want to go back to, like, I thought that they were going to do the AHL conditioning stint here thing. And I still have that question of, okay, would Berkly Catton be playing tonight if Jared McCann was healthy? And I don't think he would.
I don't think so.
So, and then was the plan originally to send him down to CV now? But of course, you pivot since you have this spot in the top 6 open. And I think, like, they're doing the right thing here in playing him, and it looks like giving him an opportunity. But are they kind of doing the right thing by accident? Is this is this just the result of an injury that puts him in a good spot here to make his NHL debut? I don't know. What's your read on that? Like, what do you think the original plan was?
I think the original plan was at least to keep him around for this road trip. Like all indications have been from like the little bits of conversation that you can catch from people in interviews or whatever. It seems like they wanted him around for this road trip to see what an NHL road trip was like, right? How guys handle themselves on a road trip, what practicing on the road is like, and having him just around the NHL team while they did this, extended 2-week road trip was very important for them, or at least a week and a half road trip. So I think that the idea was that he would be scratched for the road games, but he was always going to be there for them. So I don't think that like he was going to be originally sent down to CV yesterday or today. I don't think that that was the plan to start that conditioning stint right away. Now, was the plan maybe that he hangs around with the team for the road trip and then makes his debut at home in that first game back or something? Maybe, I don't know. Or if he gets sent down at that point, I don't know. But I firmly believe that he was always intended to be a healthy scratch throughout this road trip, but stay with the team throughout this road trip. As for moving forward, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens, right? Like, do you now, like, once he's in the lineup, let's say he is matching the intensity and he's playing well enough to be at least, like a third liner, right? Like he does end up kind of with Shane and he's kind of in that role and he's getting like 13, 14 minutes a night. And that's just kind of where he's slotted in, but he doesn't look out of place. Do you think they just run the 9 games with him? And you just kind of do that, and you scratch, like Ryan Winterton has been falling down the lineup, in part because of like maybe some discipline issues there when it comes to taking penalties, or Mason Marchment has been losing time for the same reason. We can talk about that later. But like, do you think that they would maybe just consider that? Like Jared McCann comes back, slots back in on that top line. Berkly Catton can slide down the lineup, and then they just run through the 9 games, then send him on the conditioning stint. And then by then you're talking about like a week or two before Team Canada camp opens up in, kind of early-ish December, and you just send him off to that.
I don't know. I don't think that's the plan, because we don't know how many games Jared McCann is going to miss, but I don't think it's going to
Right.
be 9. And so I know you mentioned maybe moving a Marchment or Winterton down, but I don't know that's something that Coach Lambert's going to want to do, just because I think that as far as a full, well-rounded game and winning games right now, Berkly Catton, hey, maybe he is better than those 2 guys in a top 9 role, but I'm not convinced that that's the case quite yet. And certainly not convinced that Lane Lambert would be convinced of that.
Mhm.
So I find that kind of hard to imagine. And also, if you just run through the 9 games right then I guess you do the scratch in the AHL stint. And it does get you close enough, I guess, to the World Junior Orientation Camp, but there's still a gap there afterward too, where you kind of, especially if you hit the 9th game where you're having him on your roster, you can't really play him. Like
Yeah.
you can, but it burns the ELC, and it's like, he's just sitting there knowing that he can't really play until the World Juniors arrive. I don't know. It seems like a tricky situation. I think they might spread the 9 games out a little bit more, but at a certain point, I think they want to get him that AHL stint. I think that has
Yeah.
been part of the plan all along. And so I think they're going to maybe time it out right before World Juniors. I also think the progression of like playing the NHL games and then getting in that rhythm there, and then having to get in a different rhythm for the AHL where you're kind of going down, and then World Juniors where you're going down further. I don't know, what just it feels odd to me, but maybe that's what the direction you want. I don't know.
It's what they did with Shane, right? Like, so like it's just like we have a sample size of 1 to try to extrapolate out what this plan
Yeah.
could be, and the sample size of 1 was that. So I don't know.
I don't think it worked all that great. I know they're different players,
I
different
agree.
situations, but it didn't work out all that great with Shane, I think.
I don't either. I think, again, very, very different in the sense that like Shane's number one issue is always like his confidence in him going out there and trying to assert himself. And I think that, um, you know, uh, not playing every day is worse for that, right? Like I think Berkely could handle his starts being stretched out a little bit better than say Shane could, just as far as like what they need to work on when they're out there. Like if having Berkely Catton play every other game or every third game allows him when he's in the lineup to expend the energy to go out there and really fight on the forecheck and to really push himself to defend through the neutral zone and do all of those things that are just hard on any 19-year-old trying to play in the National Hockey League. But if they allow him to match the effort level that the rest of the team has, then yeah, that's the key. And have him start every other game or have him start every third game. That's fine, because I think that that's what's really important. Going back to Shane, I think it was important to string together starts for him because you needed him to build confidence at that level and to believe more and more that yes, he could play that and he could get away with these kinds of plays and he could whatever. I'm not really worried about that with Berkly Catton. Whenever we see Berkly Catton, he just plays Berkly Catton's game, which is I'm going to be on the perimeter. I want the puck on my stick, and then I want to find the guy that's open. I don't think that is going to change whether or not he plays the 9 games in a row or if those 9 games are spread out over 2 months. And so I think it does allow a little bit more flexibility for the Kraken in that regard than what they had before. But I also think that at some point, if you're focused on him learning things like forechecking and play away from the puck, yeah, repetition matters. And having him like spot start once a week, I don't know that you can get into the rhythm that you might need to get into. So it's a complicated system. Thank God it's going away next year, and you could just
Oh,
have
yeah.
guys like this in the AHL. It's just sucks, but it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the Kraken kind of handle it. But I don't know that there's going to be like a bad option for him in the same ways that there kind of was for Shane.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot less downside here, whichever way they go. I mean, just the toughest part is just that essentially 3-week block of scratches and then AHL time that you kind of have to fit into the schedule somewhere and figure out where to fit it. And I think right now would have been the perfect time to do it. You know, had you not stuck to the original, we don't know that that's what the plan was, but had you just done the first 5 games, send him down now, I think the timing on that would have been perfect. But stuff happens. You got to adjust, and that's what the Kraken are doing right now. So I think it'll be fine. I'm still excited to see his debut, and like the one thing too, I would say is you want to time out the games he does get. Whenever he does get those 9 games,
Mhm.
I'd say against opponents that are maybe a little bit weaker, where you could maybe even afford to have a player who's trying to learn how to fit in the
Mhm.
NHL. And I think Philly is one of those teams. And they've got some of those teams coming up. They've got a lot of San Jose. They've got a lot of Chicago. I think if you can try and time some of those games where he plays for to be against those opponents.
I was going to say one of the things that's interesting about this, and we were kind of having this discussion beforehand, is I don't know that it has to do with the opposing team's skills so much as it has to do with the opposing team's effort, right? Like again, all of what we're talking about and what we're going to talk about in this next segment about Lambert's system and what's working, it all comes down to that effort and being able to win, puck battles, board battles, play away from the puck. I almost feel like the teams that are necessarily good or bad at those things are not necessarily it doesn't always correlate to good or bad in the standings. So like I look at a team like the Flyers tonight and I go, I don't know that like that would be the kind of game because like yeah, the Flyers roster is bad, but they are like a high effort team. Like that is why they're 500 right now is because they're going out there similar to the Kraken and they're trying to play better than they are and they're compensating for that with advanced effort, advanced intensity, playing ultra physical, all of that kind of stuff. Those almost seem like the games that are worse for Cat, and I'd rather have him out there against a team like, say, the New York Rangers. I don't know that they're not really necessarily on the schedule for this, but a team like the
I mean, they are
Rangers, well, yeah,
November
they are
1st.
that are just going to try to outskill you. Like I feel like that gives Berkly Catton more of a chance to then have opportunities for better play away from the puck and stuff like that. Even though it's a game that the Kraken probably end up losing just because they're not able to go toe to toe on the skill side of things. Like I almost wonder if that's better. Like a team like San Jose, it's both, right? Like you're more
I
skilled
was
than
going to
them
say
and
that's
you
yeah.
outwork them. But specifically, like for teams like the Rangers and Flyers, just because those are the two that are coming to mind right now, I almost wonder if starting him against the Rangers would be better.
I think we're going to find out a lot about that tonight because I
Yeah,
wouldn't say the Kraken have played a team that's low on skill and high on effort yet this season.
I agree.
And so I think we're going to find out a lot there, and we get even transition to kind of how they're playing,
Yes.
and will it work against other opponents, and how sustainable is this? Because, um, yeah, they've played a lot of teams that are high on skill, and I think in that particular night, low on effort. We've played, they've played
Oh,
some that
listening
are.
to some Steve Dangle, have you?
Oh, I can only stomach like a minute or two. I did try. I tried watching
I
the show on
tried too,
Fargo.
and
Yeah.
I could not do it.
Yeah. He's got to start at 11 now every time just to
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
work. But
work.
anyway, but yeah, I mean this is what we saw in this Toronto game, and where we've seen it even against like Vegas. They played some high skilled teams.
Mhm.
They've done well, and it's because the Kraken, as here I'll bring up the quote from Anthony Stolarz because I think this is the perfect like
Yeah, it was a
transition to this.
great quote for the Kraken.
Yeah. The Leafs goalie, he said it was a good third period, but the first two periods we kind of let them walk all over us. They outworked us in front of the net. They blocked shots. They beat us up and down the ice, and the score was indicative of that. They just outworked us, plain and simple. And when you have the opposing goalie saying that, that tells you you're putting in the work and you're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. And that is how this team is winning. It is, obviously systems matter and those are important, but so much of why this team is winning, and we've been saying it in, every either post-game live or post-game debrief. Thank you for the naming suggestions, by the way. We had multiple people suggest post-game debrief across different social platforms. So thank you for everybody who did that. That's why we've been focused so much on it, because I think that as we talk about what's working and a lot of it having to do with Lane Lambert, it's yes, he's running systems, and we were going to break down systems, but then we realized that all of the graphics we had were from back when we previewed what Lane Lambert was going to bring to the team back when he was hired from his days with the Islanders, and not a lot of them actually fit with what he's actually running here with the Kraken. He has changed pretty substantially some of the things that he's done, particularly like on the power play. Um, that the graphics just don't really work for. So we realized, oh, I guess we need to make new graphics, and that's why we're not doing a deep dive into the system today. But so much of it just comes down to the effort that the team has here. And so I'm going to read a prepared statement that I have, which I normally really try not to do. I never make notes. I don't read. That's why I tend to ramble a little bit when
There's
we
some
when we do
scandal here,
things.
Dylan, that you're addressing.
But I'm going to read a prepared statement. But it has to do with the talk that we had last season around the team, and that people would bring up, and that and maybe why I push back on some of it. So a team could be more than the sum of its parts, and that's what we're seeing this season. Last year, when I would push back on all the blow it up and rebuild talk, I'm sure many of you remember those times. This is why I would push back on that. When we talk about the roster not being the best on paper, I would just say that it could be good enough, right? Like that was my thing last year, was that the roster was good enough to be, at least competitive in games, but that it requires a lot of work and effort. And we don't know if this work and effort that the Kraken are putting in right now is going to continue for another week, month, or the rest of the season. But I just want fans to remember what we're seeing right now, because this is the power of coaching, right? It is a system, yes, but it's a system that's pretty simple. I'm just going to say that right now. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're not, remodernizing the NHL or anything like that out there. They're playing very simple, but they're playing effective. They're manufacturing chances, and they're not getting cute in the defensive zone. It's special teams that studies their opponents and attacks their weaknesses. But most important of all, for Coach Lane Lambert right now and what the Kraken are doing, it just comes down to him being able to motivate a group of grown men that make a lot of money, almost all of which make more than he does, to go out there and push themselves to the limit, push them to put their body in positions that are going to lead to actual physical harm and pain, because that's what they're doing, and push themselves to work harder than the guy on the other team. And that's good coaching. And that's what Lane Lambert's doing right now. And also, I threw so much more into that prepared statement. I still could not stick to the prepared statement, even when I was reading it directly off my laptop. But the point is, that's what Lane Lambert's doing. And that's what's working for the Kraken, is it literally just comes down to the motivation. And we had so many conversations last year, at least earlier on last year, right? Everything devolved as the year went on, because it just became so evident that nothing was working for the Kraken. But early on last season, I remember the rebuild talk. I remember all of that stuff. And every time, RJ, right, I would go on Post Game Live and I was like, no, it doesn't need to be completely blown up. It can work if the guys just kind of try, basically, right? Like they just need to try. And what we're seeing this year is that they are trying. They're playing away from the puck with effort, with intensity. And that is how you can win when you don't have the roster on paper most nights, right? I think this is a roster that is better than some teams in the National Hockey League, but not better than most. They're probably better than about a third of the league, right? If you looked at things just on paper. And I think that in hockey, you can still be effective in that spot. You can still be a team that's competitive, that can force overtime games consistently and play that way and collect points in the standings. But it just comes down to you putting in the effort and putting in the work to make it happen. You can even make mistakes, not too many of them, but you can get away with even mistakes if you're outworking the other team by that much. And when I look at games, I mean, the Toronto game especially, clearest example, but even games like, the Anaheim, the home opener against Anaheim, look at the Vegas game, that was pretty much just because they played mistake free. But you look at really all the games on this road trip, they have worked harder than their opponent pretty substantially, and they've put themselves in a position to win or at least get a point in the standings. And it literally just comes down to Lane Lambert has the guys actually playing that way. And so I know there's been lots of things, I see it on social media, whether it's, Instagram or Reddit, whatever, of people being like, wow, what changed, right? I'm more of a casual fan. What ended up changing here? And everybody's got a million, things that they respond with. It literally just comes down to effort level. Like I promise you it is effort level, because what they're doing systems wise is like less complex than what they were trying to do last year. Like it is unbelievably simple. It's just putting all the onus on them to go out there and do the little things right. And that is what Lane Lambert has this team doing. And that is what's making the difference this year. And that's the thing to talk about when we talk about Lane Lambert. It is not the systems and all of that kind of stuff. There is room for talk on that. But I think the primary thing that we need to be talking about right now, as the Kraken have points in each of their first 5 games, is just the fact that he's got them playing in a way that we have never seen this team play before. And that, frankly, we did not think they were capable of playing last year. And that, I think, is the big thing that needs to be hammered home, and the big conversation that Kraken fans need to be having, and what they need to be appreciating right now while it's happening, because it is a hard style of game. We're seeing the injuries pile up. Who knows how long it's going to last, but appreciate it while it's here, and understand that when we talk about stuff like last year, about the roster maybe not being good enough, you can still go out there and you can still win games with a bad roster. It just means you have to do the little things right.
Really well said. And by the way, thank you, because that's the clip that I'm going to take it as we're promoting the podcast. There it is. Boom.
Yeah.
So that's great. Well said. And I'm in complete agreement with you on this. And I mean, when you talked about it on the post game live last year about hold up, don't blow it up, right? This roster is good enough. I think the reason, certainly one of the reasons for me that I was looking at it and say, well, you do need to blow it up, because I wasn't convinced that this group was capable of giving the effort on a consistent basis. And that was my issue, right? Of like, okay, skill wise, they might be good enough, but this group of guys, can they really give that effort? Can they try this hard on a consistent basis? And I mean, I still have my questions about it for 82 games or however long it lasts, but man, they've done it over 5 games. They absolutely have. And they've been locked in and they've been focused. And so, I mean, I kind of also tried to address this question of, what is it? Why are they playing so well? Why are they succeeding right now? And I as I tend to do, I tried to look at maybe the underlying numbers and saying, okay, is there some stuff here that's either sustainable or not? Tried to gauge that, and looking at a lot of the underlying numbers too. I mean, Kraken 22nd in the NHL in expected goals percentage, like, they're shooting higher than you would expect, all this stuff. And normally I would look at that and I'd be like, okay, you can expect this to bounce back a little bit. This isn't really sustainable. But having watched the games, and this is a very unlike me take, but having watched the games, this actually looks sustainable as long as they continue to play this way. Because like in the NHL, it's a long season. It's a grind. And NHL teams, we see this when the playoffs start, right? You're not able to expend the same level of energy and effort and focus in every regular season game that you do in, say, a playoff game, right? No NHL team is really playing at 100% throughout the regular season. And when you just consistently work hard on other teams, you can do that even against skilled teams. You'll catch the Leafs on nights where they don't want to put in the work to have to beat you if they realize, oh man, this team's coming in and they're they're going to really outwork us. Do we want to put in playoff level effort here to try and win this game? We could do it and probably outskill them, but is that worth it for one game out of 82? Maybe not. And I think consistently you're getting other teams that are making that calculation. It was during the Vegas game that I tweeted, I think probably in the second period or so, sample size of only 2 games at that point, but it felt like there was a certain point in every Kraken game where their opponent realized that this was going to be a really difficult game and it was going to be a difficult opponent to play against. And oh man, we're just like not going to score easily. They're not going to give us anything. And it felt like it really demoralized the Kraken's opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that phenomenon has continued. They have made some mistakes, but then they've been able to outscore those mistakes. You look at the Montreal game, and yeah, you have Chandler Stevens to kind of give Cole Caulfield a goal. And at that point, mentally, as a team, you could think if you're Montreal, okay, you know, we got this. But then the Kraken come back and score, and they don't let the deficit get to more than 1 goal. And it takes a toll mentally when you realize, okay, yeah, we can't put them away. We're going to have to give that full 60 minutes of effort all the time. And even then, they're going to be on top of us the whole game. It really works. And we saw it with last year's Calgary Flames. We see examples of it every season, but it's the kind of thing that it is sustainable as long as they play this way. And so I'm throwing all the numbers out. I don't know whether they can play this way for 82 games. You know, we're going to see times, I think, where they get away from it, where they make mistakes. But as long as they continue to do this, they're going to continue to get similar results. They're going to get to overtime in games, even against good teams. Mm-hmm. And they're going to get enough wins and bank enough points that they're going to be in the conversation for the playoffs.
That's, I think, the thing that's so important is that they're really taking advantage of each and every game and each and every opportunity to get points in the standings right now, because at some point this is going to ebb and flow. There are going to be times that they are not able to put out this level of intensity because they've played that way for 33 games and they're in the second game of a back-to-back, and you just can't get there again, right, for that night. That is normal. All the teams that play this way and kind of go with this philosophy have those nights. The key thing is that right now at the beginning of the season, when you are fresh, when you're the most amped up that you could possibly be, and you're excited that you kickstart the momentum rolling in this direction, right? And that you get rewarded for that effort early on so that you continue to want to put in that effort throughout the year. And that when you do find yourself at some point, inevitably having lost 2 or 3 games in a row, you want to continue to still put out that effort because you do believe that, like, no, it's just like those were just things that happened. If we play this way, we will be rewarded for it because we were in the past. That's what the Kraken are doing right now. They're banking as many points as they can, which is so, so important. Again, when you have the energy to play this way and to do it as effectively as they are doing it right now, maximize the points that you can when you're a team that is going to be losing that skill battle throughout the course of the season, right? And so I think everything that the Kraken are doing right now is just it's absolutely correct, and it's also they're actually getting the best possible results, right? And I think that that's going to be super important to them. I know some people are already bringing up like regulation wins and tiebreakers and stuff. And look, I think you're still probably on the outside looking in at an actual playoff berth. Right. Again, like look at Calgary last year. They played extremely tough, but they still weren't able to quite get in at the end of the year. I would not worry about any potential tiebreakers and the fact that all these games are going to overtime, whatever. Take the OTLs, take the fact that this team's going to be in the conversation late in the year. And that is a huge win for this group and for the fans and for everybody. So I think that that's the stuff that to pay attention to. To your point of it being sustainable, outworking your opponent is always sustainable forms of play. Manufacturing chances the way that they have been, having net front presences, taking away a goalie's eyes or being there for rebounds, getting, clearing out space so that somebody can get to a prime high danger shooting area. These are all things that are sustainable, that are going to allow you to go out there and to score maybe more goals than you're expected to according to analytics models and stuff like that, because they can't always properly take those things into account. And so I'm totally with you that as long as they continue to play like this, it is sustainable. I also think, and I've been saying this kind of all off season, they were due for like a shooting bender, right? Like they were due for like a year 2 style shooting percentage bump. They haven't gotten like a huge one. Like they are above league average right now in shooting percentage. Looking at, where did it go? I just had it. 11.8% according to Hockey Reference right now. League average is 10.8%. So they're 1% higher than league average. But I think it's one of those things where it can be a mix of you were kind of due for a shooting season, but also a lot of that is goalies aren't seeing pucks. They're taking advantage of lanes to get to goalies and be in tight on them. The power play is effective again, which helps your shooting percentage. I think that a lot of this is sustainable. I'm with you, and that's so refreshing. It's so refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, I want to you quote Anthony Stolars again, like when he was talking about, being run by Mason Marsh, where he said it's just playing hard. Maybe we can take a page out of their book and get to the net. We like to go low to high and shoot, but for their goalie, it's like playing catch. We're not making it difficult. And it's that kind of thing where you see how difficult they're making it on an opposing goalie by getting to the net and doing, those, just putting in the work to do those things that cause goals, and in a way that their opponent just wasn't. And if you let Joey Daccord just play catch, he's going to play catch, and he's going to stop those pucks, and it's going to be easy. And so it's that kind of thing that I guess, the most unsustainable part of it maybe we're seeing is just the injuries, the punishment that you take from going to those areas. But if you can hold up, it's fine. I'd say the one area that's probably not sustainable is the power play. And it's something they certainly have relied upon, and something I think we ought to at least address.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where I was going next too. So yeah,
because let's don't get carried away here. We're not saying, oh yeah, they're a playoff team, they're gonna keep just running through the league, get up points in every single game and all that stuff. We're not going that far. And one of
this team, I was going to say, based on our projections, this team could get an OTL in every game and finish it in the 85 point range. That would fit point wise with kind of where we were thinking they could finish.
That's true. Yeah, if they get to overtime in every game, they will make the playoffs. I'll tell you that right now for sure. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that. But the power play is one of the big reasons that they've been able to accomplish what they have. And I mean, you look at their last 4 games, they were all tied at the end of regulation, and one of the goals, at least, that the Kraken had scored was on the power play. They can count on a power play goal basically every game at this point, and the power play is clicking at a little over 28%. That's certainly top 10 in the league, and so that's great. That's fantastic, and I like what they're doing on the power play. They're working the puck around well, but given just the level of talent on the team, I don't think the Kraken can count on a power play goal every game. No team really does that. And so I think they're going to have to find ways. Really, I think it's just to make fewer mistakes, because I think the power play, as you talked about earlier in the podcast, it's covering for some of the mistakes. Score a power play goal, that allows you one additional mistake you can make that ends up in the back of your net. And so far, they have needed them.
Yeah. I was going to say, like there is a difference. If you look at the Vegas game versus the 3 games that they've played so far in Canada, right? Score that Vegas game is 1-1 going into overtime. It's not the case for those Canadian games, right? Like those Canadian games, there was more mistakes, but you were able to take advantage of it and kind of get back in that. But I do think if you were to ask Lane Lambert, what is the model? What's the expectation for a game? It's more so that Vegas game. That's the kind of hockey that he wants to see, and that's the team playing mistake free and really locked in against a good opponent and trying to get the 2 points there. And so, and even in that, the Kraken's 1 goal was on the power play, I believe. So
yes, it was.
Yeah. So even then, the power play made the difference and mattered pretty substantially. So I'm with you. I think that I talked about this on the last post game debrief that right now the defense is bending more than Lambert probably wants. It hasn't broken yet, but that defense is bending a lot, and the power play is helping make up for that. I think that one of the things that is better about the power play is just that Jared McCann is over in a spot to use his one-timer, and we haven't even seen him really score with that yet. But I just think that last year, and really this goes back to even under Dave Hackstall and Paul McFarland and what the power play was doing there, wasn't even just necessarily a last year problem. Having Jared McCann kind of in his spot, as everybody deemed it after year 2, over on that other side where he wasn't really in position to ever use a one-timer, and he was so high up in the zone, and the whole power play had to run through him there. And he's just not a playmaker. It's an awkward spot for somebody to try to be a playmaker because you can't effectively work the puck down low or into the slot or anything like that. And it was so easy to take away his shooting lane because he just has a wrist shot shooting lane. It was so easy for other teams to plant a defender there. that it's so severely limited what the power play could be for the Kraken last year. This year, having Jared McCann moved off that spot and not trying to run everything through him opens everything up. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I like how down low they're playing. The fact that it kind of transitions slowly out of a 1-3-1 almost into like a hybrid triangle overload down low type look at times. And I think that that's really when we've seen most of the goals has been when they've been effectively running that. And that I can't wait to kind of talk about next week. But that I think has been the biggest thing, is just literally moving Jared McCann and saying, hey, let's maybe not run the whole power play through one guy's wrist shot. Shockingly, that like opened everything up, RJ.
Yeah, it's incredible. Who could have seen that coming? It does add a whole other dimension to the power play. And I mean, so much we talked about it. It's easy to kind of gloss over, like just have a one-time threat there, have a one-time threat there. And really emphasis on the word threat. He doesn't even need to score goals on the one-timer there, but just having somebody on the off wing opens up so much. And I'm really hoping, because of course they won't have that tonight. Jared McCann's going to be out. Give me Yanni Newman in that spot.
Please.
That spot is made for him. You don't have McCann. You need a lefty shot. Just put Yanni Newman there.
Yeah. He is more than a threat if you put Yanni Newman there, right? Like he's a full-on guy. I think that the other thing with both special teams is they're really doing a good job of taking advantage of what other teams are doing. We see it a lot on the PK. The PK is really changing how they play based on opponent. I think the Vegas game was the best example of that. It was when it was at its tightest and the most locked in, but we're seeing it against the other teams as well. And that I think is big, but also on the power play. So many teams are running the 1-3-1, RJ, and it's fairly stagnant. That what I'm noticing is, because I keep being like, how are the Kraken getting so many down low and in tight opportunities on the power play? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You'd think that would be the one area of the ice that should be the most covered, as every team is running some variation of the box or the wedge. PK. So many teams, RJ, are just running a standard 1-3-1 that if you go out there and you just give them the look of a 1-3-1 at the beginning, they're having 2 or 3 of their defenders play so high up in the zone that you can so easily get numbers down low and take advantage of it. Certainly, like Ottawa was awful at this. Like they were just like vacating the entire net front area for some reason. I don't know what they were doing on the PK. Anywhere. But we saw it against Toronto as well. I think you go back to the Montreal game, you get some good looks at it as well, where they're so focused. Their top 2 penalty killers, their forwards, playing so high up in the zone to try to get and disrupt those one-timer passing lanes that they're not even realizing when the Kraken try to shift further down low, and all of a sudden you can have a 2-on-0 or a 2-on-1 kind of in that net front area, and then the bumper guy comes in and you can really get overloaded down low. That's what the Kraken are doing right now. And so it's one of those, as long as teams continue to play them like they're every other power play, I think we might still continue to see some pretty good power play success from them. It'll be interesting to see if teams start shifting and bringing guys back down in the zone. But even like the defensemen are playing really high up on the PK against the Kraken, and the Kraken are just like, all right, if you're going to give us this free real estate in the most prime position possible, we'll take it. And then they're getting goals from it, because that's really where all of the Kraken power play goals are coming from.
Yeah, it's free real estate. It's perfect, right?
Yeah.
And I think Allison Lucan did a really good job breaking it down to I think a couple intermission reports too, as they're kind of drawing the defenseman up a little bit higher. I think it's the kind of thing you can easily look at video and adjust for. And I think we're going to see that at some point from the Kraken opponents. Right now, it's only been on film for 5 games. And, in the past couple games, it's only been on film for 3 games. And so maybe you don't see it as a pattern, but look, coaches are good. Video coaches, they're going to see it. And so teams are going to adjust. Of course, that's going to, if they bring defensemen further down, that's going to open up other things up higher. And so the Kraken are going to have to make counter adjustments. And that's where we're going to see the skill of the coaching staff. Okay, how can you adjust to that then and open up other things? And so I'm excited to see what they come up with, because that's kind of the whole back and forth game of coaching and strategy and all that sort of thing. I mean, we remember last season, the Kraken were off to a 4-2 start. That play up ice, the Dan Bylsma speed thing, it was working great. Teams adjusted, and the Kraken didn't have a way to counter adjust. They could not make those adjustments back to find the other things that had opened up. You have to be different this year, certainly on the power play. Teams are going to adjust. You got to find the next thing.
Yeah. Beautiful thing is if the other team starts playing down low, now the one-timers open up.
Exactly. Johnny
So
Newman.
exactly.
Come
Yanni
on.
Newman, Jared McCann, Ellie Tolvanen. All of a sudden, then we start, I think, seeing power play goals from them a little bit more frequently. So that is the nice part about all this. I also think there's an element with the power play, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, what you were mentioning with other teams maybe looking at the Kraken and being like, damn, do we, in a regular season game, do we want to play this tough? Kraken are very much getting away with right now. You can tell every team looks at them and they're just not spending much time thinking about them because they're just like, oh, it's the Kraken. They've been a bottom 5 team 3 of the last 4 years. Maybe we don't spend all of our video time on them this week, right? Or, oh, the guys, when they're looking at the schedule, they're like, well, we got this tough game right before it. We got a tough game right after it. Maybe this is the game that you just don't mentally get yourself as prepared for. And I think that the Kraken could absolutely take advantage of that. I think that that is a great thing to have for this year. I think it doesn't last more than a year because then you have that reputation. I think it's one of those things that even as you get further on into divisional and conference games, you lose that reputation and you start building a different one. But again, this is where it's important at the beginning of the year, while teams are not taking you seriously, you take advantage of that and you bank points and you get as many wins and OTLs as possible because those points will be just as legitimate as the points everybody's trying to collect in March and April.
Exactly. That's the blueprint. I mean, as just kind of silly and I think generally useless as the way too early episode that we do, where we kind of predict every single Kraken game over the course of the season is, like, I don't think there's a whole lot of value to be gained in that episode and preparing for it. Looking at the schedule and the way it plays out, I think I had the Kraken starting like 16-4 or something. There's a lot of opportunities to bank points early in the season. That's kind of the way the schedule just works out for you. It's a very easy schedule through the end of November. This is the opportunity right here, and they're doing it.
Right. And you've already got to win against a Vegas team. You got to win against Toronto. You're picking up points against teams like Montreal and Ottawa, who made the playoffs last year. Like they're doing everything right now. And it's refreshing to see that.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, let's just enjoy.
Exactly.
Let's enjoy while they're doing this.
Exactly. I think that that's the number one thing that everybody needs to kind of focus on. And I think that's probably where we can leave it for today as well. Of course, got to thank our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendor, one more time before we head on out. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the Emerald City Hockey community, we know he'll help you too. Thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we will see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.